The following is a special presentation of Ashland University's College of Arts and Sciences.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Ashland Alive. I am your host, Gretchen Dworznik, and thanks for joining us today. On this show, we like to spotlight organizations and folks doing really great things around the Ashland community. Joining me today is Tracy Foley, who is the Social Service Supervisor for the Ashland County Department of Job and Family Services, and also Pam Bagera, I knew I was going to mess that up, who's the Program Coordinator for Catholic Charities. Thank you both for joining us today. I swear I knew I was going to mess it up, so we'll see if I can't get through it. Why don't we just sort of start off and hear a little bit about the organizations that you ladies work for. Let's start with Job and Family Services. Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Gretchen. I work for Job and Family Services. I'm the Social Service Supervisor, so I supervise both Child Protective Services as well as Adult Protective Services. Okay. Within Ashland County Job and Family Services, there's actually 4 departments. I'm one of 4. We also have the Family Stability Department. We have Child Support. We have the Workforce Investment Department, or the Employment and Training, along with Children's Services and Adult Protection.
How many families do you service through Job and Family Services?
Oh, thousands. I don't have the exact number there, but I mean thousands of families throughout all 4 departments.
Great. So. Pam, tell us a little bit about Catholic Charities.
Catholic Charities has a variety of programming. They cover mental health, including early childhood mental health. We do a huge prevention component too. We have the Child Assault Prevention Program. We also have Family Support Services. We have the ACT program, the Golden Center down in the Loudonville, Perrysville area, and also the MGM program down there. So.
Lots of things going on over there. Exactly. Well, we brought you ladies here today to talk a little bit about child assault prevention and child abuse. Tell me, is this a big problem, or is there a lot of need for your types of services here in Ashland County?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's a lot of need. The need's so great. We don't even have enough staff to handle all of it, really. I would say that's throughout all 4 departments, not just Children's Services. Mm-hmm. You know, currently we have 94 children who are in our temporary or permanent custody, who we are providing services to, as well as we have a number of families who we are working through different other forms of court orders, where not necessarily custody orders. So we have around approximately 165 cases right now, and that could include anywhere from 1 to however many children are in a family. So that 160 plus cases is a family, like one family. So, but again, the number of people within that family varies. And again, that's just with Children's Services. I couldn't even begin to tell you what the numbers are in the other 3 departments. But that's what we work with right now in Children's Services. Sure.
And how many children and families are you helping with Catholic Charities in this regard?
In the child assault prevention area, we service most of the schools and preschools here in Ashland County. We no longer service Ashland City schools. They put in programming for themselves to cover House Bill 55 requirements, but all 3 major school districts and the preschools in the area, all of the Head Starts and several of the private preschools we service through the CAP program, or Child Assault Prevention. So, and then with Family Support Services right now, I have a small caseload on that for the simple fact I'm in between families and referrals on a lot of those. So usually I see 25 families per year on that, which goes into the home with child assault prevention information per family, and it also covers PPP positive parenting, which is the same curriculum that Akron Children's Hospital uses, and that it also has a service coordination piece to it where I can tie them in and resource them to help get their needs met, decreasing the household stress and therefore less likelihood that children will be abused or neglected.
Tell me, why is it so important to focus on prevention? That's obviously what your organization is doing. Why is it so important to sort of get those pieces into the schools and available to people?
The education as early on as possible is really important. Even if you look at the fire department, you know, they go into the schools, they work with children, you know, on stop, drop, and roll, all the prevention of having a fire, and the same thing with child assault prevention. What they find is that early education piece, it helps children learn early on that they do have rights and what they can do if they feel that those rights are being taken away. It helps them recognize potentially dangerous situations and gives them skills to get out of those situations safely. So putting it in the forefront so that before things do get bad or a situation does arise, they can do things to help themselves and get themselves help. Then if they are in the middle of a situation, how they can get help and get out of that situation safely. So,
how early do you start prevention training for kids?
Preschool, ages 3 to 5. We have several curriculums. We have the preschool, we have special needs, we have elementary, and we have teen. And each program is developmentally age appropriate for those children. In other words, what you would go in and teach a preschooler is nowhere near what you would go in and talk to a teen about. It wouldn't be respectful to the teen population. So it's something that they can relate to, and it's on their level, so it gives them a better understanding.
What types of, I guess, suggestions do you give them? You know, give me sort of an idea of some of the things you might tell, you know, a smaller child versus an older age child in terms of how to get out of situations or what to look for.
Really, with the smaller children, when we go in and we do the preschool curriculum, it's putting that foundation in. So it's giving them the understanding of rights. Rights are simply things that they can do. It gives them the understanding that they have the right to be safe, to feel protected, so that they feel that no one or nothing is going to hurt them, that comfort zone. They have the right to be strong, not only have physical health, but to feel good about who they are. And then also the right to be free to make choices as long as it doesn't take someone else's rights away, break rules, or break laws. When we go into the teen population, it's different in the respect that they need to understand that they have control over their bodies. Nobody has the right to touch them in a way that would make them feel uncomfortable. No matter who the person is, even though it is somebody that they, you know, might know, and what they can do in those situations. When we talk about safety with them, they have the understanding that they have the right to say no in certain situations, to be respected. So it's the vocabulary in that that's used. Plus, it's putting it in the area that they can totally understand because of where they're at developmentally. So.
Trace, let me ask you this: what types of maltreatment are you, sort of working with, or are you seeing in terms of children and family here in Ashland County?
Well, there's 4 types of maltreatment that we look into, and really that the law says there is, and that would be physical abuse is one of them. Neglect, which not only is the failure to meet their basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter, but it's also the failure to provide education if they are of school age, and also medical care, and that could be dental as well, so dental or medical care. Then we also look at emotional maltreatment, that's psychological abuse and sexual abuse.
Is there one that you see more often here in Ashland County, or do you sort of see all of it here in this area?
Well, I mean, our statistics follow the national statistics, and we really see a lot more neglectful cases for many reasons. Because the neglect covers such a broad area and so many things, the failure to provide something. So we see that, and too, the younger children, we see a lot of reports of neglect in the younger children, and not that I don't think it's happening with the older children, it's just the older children tend to know how to get those things that aren't being provided, and so it's not as easily reported, or we see that there. But neglect would definitely be the highest or the most reported at this point.
Do you think, what I guess are some of the reasons behind that? Is it broken families, or people not understanding what is and is not neglect, or what are some of the causes you think?
Well, it can vary. The environment that the child's living in, could be, not that this is all inclusive by any means, but we see that in impoverished families. We see it in broken homes, but we also see it in homes that are intact, with mother, father, or at least two caregivers. It sometimes might be the family may not know where to go to get these things or these services or the help that they need. It could be because a parent is suffering from either some sort of let's say unemployment, like it could be a conditional type situation of that nature. There could be chronic illnesses within the home, and so that takes precedence sometimes. It could be a lot of things that contribute to that type of neglect or maltreatment.
Pam, you mentioned a little bit earlier when you were talking about some of the programs that you do, that talking to parents was part of that. What do you do in terms of trying to let parents know and train them about these types of situations?
With the Child Assault Prevention Program, which is an international program, it functions on 3 components. There's always a teacher-staff in-service that's offered when we go into a school. There is also an adult meeting. It used to be called a parent meeting, but with the composition of different family types, the modern families, it's open to all adults in the community, so even a neighbor or somebody in that school area can come in, and they get good concrete information on child assault, what it is, and exactly a better understanding, things that they might not have known before that would constitute abuse or neglect of a child. They learn how to talk to a child. They learn non-clinical crisis intervention. They also learn resources in the community, and definitely, if they do suspect, how to report to Children Protective Services. With the Parent Support or the Family Support Services program, that goes into their home. We're invited into their home, and they get that child assault prevention component, plus they get positive parenting skills to add more tools into their toolbox and give them more resources. Therefore, they can decrease the chance that assault situation might happen within their home. They've just got more of a comfort with it that's less stressful. Most of the times, I know as a parent, we get frustrated because we don't know what to do, and oftentimes then it does become, physical assault of a child or something, where if they have more tools, they can do something that's respectful to the child, but they can change that child's behavior and handle it through positive discipline techniques. So again, decreasing that stress.
Do you find that that's really a large part of it, parents actually not realizing what to do, in those situations?
Kids don't come with an owner's manual, and they don't come with a warning label, it's really hard. So parents that find themselves as parents, oftentimes they don't know what to do, or sometimes because of the way that they were raised, they don't understand how to treat a child differently and get a better result from it. So it's just that duplication. I think all of us as parents either look back and think, boy, that happened to me when I was a kid. I didn't like the way my parents did this or that, and we want to do something to change it as we raise our families. And some people just don't realize that, and they just duplicate what's been going through the family for decades and decades, and it's not benefiting the family any, and it just makes it harder work for the parents, and it does put the family more at risk oftentimes. So just being able to give them some skills or add to their skills that they already have is really beneficial with those families, those adults.
It sounds like it would be, especially like you've mentioned, parenting based on what you've always known or how you were raised. It sounds like a great thing to be able to give them some resources so maybe they don't lose their tempers or sort of go down the road of child assault and that sort of thing. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us so far, and thank you for joining us so far. When we come back, we'll talk more about child assault prevention, so stay with us.
Catholic Charities Community Services of Ashland County is a United Way agency providing a variety of social services to all residents in need of assistance. These services include child assault prevention, teen mentoring, and mental health services to children, adults, and families. In addition, Catholic Charities sponsors the Golden Center in Loudonville. This is an older adult social and recreational program that is open to all seniors on Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 12 in the Loudonville Library. If you or a loved one are in need of any of these services, please contact your local Catholic Charities today.
One thing that stands out about the Collegian, I think, is I think we're one of the best weekly college newspapers in the state of Ohio, and that's been borne out by some awards we've won from the Ohio Society of Professional Journalists. We've gotten first place and second place as the best non-daily college newspaper, which we're extremely proud of, and our reporters have won awards in that same competition with SPJ.
Welcome back to Ashland Alive. I'm your host, Gretchen Dworznik, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about child assault prevention. Joining me today is Tracy Foley, who is the Social Service Supervisor for the Ashland County Department of Job and Family Services, and also Pam Bagera, who is the Program Coordinator for Catholic Charities. And again, ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Pam, I wanted to start off this segment just by talking about some of the myths and facts surrounding child assault and child assault prevention here in Ohio.
Some of the myths that are out there are the fact that it doesn't happen here, and it happens here just like it happens everywhere else. You're not going to find a place where it doesn't exist. Statistically, we fall into the same categories as everybody else around the United States. It happens pretty much per capita. So because of the populations, it happens just about as much here as it would in Cleveland, Mansfield, or Washington, D.C. or any place. Also, the myths that it only happens in poor or minority, inner city family type situations. That has nothing to do with the socioeconomics. It has nothing to do with any of the backgrounds. It happens in the affluent families just as well as it would, in any other family. The fact that it's a rare occurrence because of the statistics, which I'm sure Tracy would be glad to share with you. For our local statistics, we do have our situations here in the county. Also, the fact that we don't understand that by the time the girl's 14 years of age, 1 out of 4 is sexually assaulted. By the time a male's 16 years of age, 1 out of 6 is assaulted. But that's really based on reported situations. So what the professionals say is that male statistic is even closer to the female statistic. And when you think about that, that's huge numbers that we're talking about. Also, that sexual assault only happens, most likely from a stranger. If that were true, that would be, the news every night and consistently. And it happens more often by people that the child does know, not people that they don't know. There's a whole grooming process that's involved. Oftentimes it happens by somebody that knows the family or works their way into the family. Versus that stranger situation, or they are part of the family sometimes too in those situations. So there's a lot of myths and facts that are involved. The myth that when somebody is assaulted that they will turn around and become a person that assaults other people, that's also a fallacy. The numbers are high. It's usually about 33% that go on to sexually assault somebody else, but the other 66% do not. So, there's a lot of myths and facts.
What
we
do you
can
think?
go on and on.
Sure. What is it about child assault that allows for so many of these myths to kind of come about? Is it, is it because it's sort of a taboo subject, kind of the thing that people don't want to talk about, or?
When we go back, back in the days of the dinosaur, even when I was a child, you didn't talk about a lot of things. You definitely didn't talk about pregnancy, even let alone teen pregnancy. It just wasn't something that you discussed. You didn't talk about cancer. You didn't talk about divorce situations or marriage problems. And so it's been kept quiet for so long, and it is coming out in the forefront, and it's fantastic that it is, because it educates everybody. It makes everybody more aware so that they can understand those situations, that they know what to look for, that they can recognize it when it is out in front of them.
Do you encounter that a lot? And that's sort of a question to both of you. Do you encounter that a lot from people, sort of the no, it's not happening, or sort of a refusal to understand that this is happening to, you know, a child? Do you sort of encounter that type of reaction a lot?
I don't know a lot. We have run across it, especially, you know, in child sexual abuse cases. I think that's a little bit harder for people to deal with and face and understand that might be happening in their family situation. The others, in terms of, you know, physical abuse, neglect, it's either there or it's not, you know, and I think that's a little bit easier for families to understand when talked through with and that sort of thing. I think the nature of sexual abuse and the taboo, again, going along with that, and it's very hard for people to understand or even to fathom that something like that may happen or has happened, you know, to them or to their children. So it happens a lot, you know, in those situations. I would say more so than the other categories of abuse or neglect.
What are some of the costs of this type of thing in Ohio, the direct and indirect costs, Pam?
The direct costs are those things where it's an immediate cost. In other words, if a child's abused or neglected, the mental health costs, sometimes definitely hospitalization if that's involved, doctor fees, lawyer fees, legal expenses, court costs, all of those things. And the number for that is $290 million per year on that for Ohio. And then the indirect costs, if you go into like the ACE studies, anytime somebody is traumatized, it's not definitely it happens and it's over. There was an ACE study, it was done by Kaiser Permanente, Dr. Felitti was a part of that. And what happens is, because of that traumatization, it puts a child oftentimes at higher risk of having problems as they go through their life into adulthood and, you know, through adulthood. They found out that the more risks or the more trauma that the child had been exposed to, whether it was, you know, sexual assault, physical abuse, whether they saw domestic violence within the home, whether there was a removal of a parent, whether a parent was incarcerated. There's several factors there, but the more of those factors that did happen to the child, the more adverse child experiences that child did have, the greater likelihood that they were going to have medical problems, mental health issues, a lot of things, you know, as adults, more alcohol, tobacco, drug abuse type situations. So those indirect costs that come along after the fact, I believe it's 2.4 billion, 2.1 billion is the number on that for the cost for Ohio.
So clearly it's something, it's you know, obviously it's something people don't talk much about, but it has a very large cost. So it sort of needs to be addressed. It needs to be brought out more into the forefront.
Oh, absolutely, because, you know, as Pam mentioned, I mean, you're also seeing an impact on the economy. You know, people not being able to work because of some of these issues, and not being able to provide for their own, you know, families. You know, the impact on government itself. You know, in children's services, for example, at one point in time, we were spending well over $4,000 a day just in placement costs for children in foster care because of abuse and neglect in families. You know, so those things to the community itself are really great, much more than I think people understand or even think about.
Absolutely. When we come back for our next segment on Ashland Alive, we'll continue talking about child assault prevention here in Ashland County. Stay with us.
Life has a way of throwing us obstacles. Life has a tendency of weighing us down, making it difficult to carry our load. Sometimes all we need is a little help. Appleseed Mental Health Center, helping you get through life's heaviest moments.
Radio's about things that you can't get from Pandora or your iPod or things like that, or satellite radio even. It's about local weather. It's about knowing how to do things and do things in the community. There's a lot more that radio has to offer an audience than just free music. It's just an experience that students will not only learn from but enjoy as well.
Welcome back to Ashland Alive, and thanks again for joining us. I'm your host, Gretchen Dworznik. We've been talking about child assault prevention here in Ashland County, and joining me again are Tracy Foley, the Social Service Supervisor for Ashland County Department of Family Services, and also Pam Bagheera, who's the Program Coordinator for the Catholic Charities. And again, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Tracy, tell me a little bit about the referral and investigation process as far as your organization is concerned.
Sure. Anyone can call. Anyone can call our agency to report child abuse or neglect. When a call is made, we call a screener. A caseworker will take that call and ask pretty much what's the concern, what's going on that you're calling us today. You would be asked, if you called in, the who, what, where's, when's, how's, if possible. Definitely need where the child is. That's probably the most important at the time of the call. Without a location or an address or something like that, there's not much we can do. But if we have that information, obviously, we can move forward. So what I'm saying with that is, if you don't have the name of the family or the child or an exact age or anything like that, that's fine. As long as we have some place to go and what your concerns are, we can have those addressed and get all that other information later on. So again, anybody can call. Of course, there are mandated persons by law who have to call Children's Services if they suspect or have reason to believe that a child's been abused or neglected. And then kind of what happens is that call's taken, the information is reviewed by either myself, my director, or my quality assurance case manager if I'm not available, to determine whether or not that's going to be what we call screened in for investigation, or if it's going to be screened out but kept for information for a later time. The call screened in, that's what starts the clock for our investigation and our assessment. We have 24 hours to ensure the safety of that child or children in that report. And we can do that. We have to talk to a principal party, someone who can say, yes, this child's safe, and it can't be the person who's been alleged to have done the abuse or neglect. It has to be someone else who can speak to that. And after that 24 hours, then we have to see the child face to face within 3 days of that. Now, if we can ensure safety by phone call in 24 hours, then we have to go and see that child within 24 hours. So there's some wiggle room within the law in regards to that, but again, if we don't make contact within that 24, we actually have to go out within that time frame. And so then that starts the investigation. We have to talk to all people in the home. That would include the child victims, the alleged perpetrator, whether they're in home or not, and then anybody else who might be living in that home. We also seek out collateral information. That could be from schools, from doctors, from counselors, anybody that child may be in contact with, to see if they might have any concerns. So we do that. And then after all that's taken care of, and I want to make a side note, we may collect records from, we might ask parents or guardians to sign releases of information to get medical records, to get in-depth, psychological reports if there are any, or counseling notes, or even for the parents, if there's been any, substance abuse treatment or something like that. We might ask for that sort of information to help us in our assessment. And then what happens is, after all that information's gathered, we do assessment on the risk, the future risk. How high is it? Is this family more likely to abuse or neglect this child or not? And we look at that, and then we see, well, what services do we have available within Ashland County or surrounding counties that can assist this family to stay together at all possible. We'd like to try to preserve the family unit as much as we can. And we'll make referrals. We make referrals to all kinds of services. services that Pam offers, as well as other counseling, substance abuse treatment programs that are out there. Parenting is a huge one that we utilize a lot. And we'll refer there. And sometimes we'll open up a case for what we call protective services, just to make sure the family does that and to ensure the safety of the child. Or sometimes we'll just close it out, depending on the risk. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the referral and the investigation process.
How, I guess, receptive are families, when you do contact them? It seems like it could be sort of a really uncomfortable situation if you've got, Child and Family Services sort of knocking on your door or calling saying, hey, are they usually pretty receptive, or, can it be difficult sometimes to get information from those families?
It can definitely be difficult at times. However, I think for a majority of the families are, for the most part, cooperative. And I lead that to the caseworkers who go out there are, very respectful. I mean, they're going out there with information and just trying to figure out what happened or didn't happen. And I think they do a very good job at trying to make families as comfortable as possible in a very uncomfortable situation, as you mentioned. So for the most part, I think families are cooperative, at least throughout the investigation process and that sort of thing. Rarely, or I wouldn't even say a handful of times, do we run into those people who are like, absolutely not, or slam doors in our faces or things like that. That typically doesn't happen.
From the referral standpoint, is that anonymous? I could see where someone might be afraid to report, thinking that then that family or that family member might know it was them. Is there a way to report but not have the family know that it was you that referred them? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We take anonymous calls. They're allowed. That's fine. We do try to encourage names and phone numbers just in the event that maybe we need to contact them again, because maybe the investigator just has an additional question or two that they don't feel can be answered by someone else. Plus sometimes, those that we rely on to call us, our neighbors, our friends, our families, these people who interact with these families and children every day. And they could be a person who might be able to protect that child in the future, so we can call and say, hey, we have this situation, we'd really like your help with this. So we do try to encourage people to leave their names and phone numbers, but they're not required. And it is covered under the law. They are protected.
Is it difficult to get people to refer, or do you get a lot of calls? Do you find people are really willing to report if they think there's a problem?
I'd like to think that people are willing to report, and they do, and people do report. We do get a lot of anonymous calls, but we also get a lot of people who are concerned, who are family members, who are friends, teachers, obviously, medical professionals, counselors. We get all those. As Pam was saying, as time has gone on, and with people being educated on the signs and the signs of abuse and neglect, as they become more aware of those elements, they're calling more. Not as much as I think we would like. We think we still have some ways to go, but I personally have been into schools and have educated teachers and other professionals, the medical community I've spoken to in terms of how to recognize abuse and neglect. I've actually spoken here to a couple classes at Ashland University to educate, student social workers on the how to recognize abuse and neglect. So we are doing that, and I know other agencies such as Catholic Charities provides that education as well. So as long as we keep plugging away and keep doing that, and I'd love to do that more, I'm sure as Pam might, I think we'll see more people becoming more aware. That there's that old adage, it takes a village, to raise a child. And I would say the same to protect them, that they need to be the ones, because that's who we rely on. Those are the people that we rely on. We can't be in there 24/7 in those homes. So they're the ones who are out there watching and reporting.
Mm-hmm. Now, Pam, when you spoke earlier, you talked about sort of giving kids the type of education to sort of get themselves out of potentially bad situations. What types of things do you do to sort of empower them, to make them feel like they are sort of the master of their own destiny in that regard.
Right, and I do want people to understand we're not out there, to have children out of control. Mm-hmm. We believe in disciplined children.
Sure.
Every adult believes in disciplined children, but we also need to recognize that there are times when children are at risk. And when they find themselves at risk, whether it's a bullying situation, whether it's, a possible stranger assault, whether it's an assault by somebody that the child does know, whether it's a sexual type assault from a peer or an adult, that they need some skills that they can get out of those situations safely. One of those things is just self-assertion, learning when and how to say no in a situation, how to take control of the situation. Any type of abuse situation is about power and control. It's somebody trying to dominate somebody else. And so being able to stand up for themselves. Peer support is huge. They look at their friends as, classmates as friends, things like that. But they also need to recognize that I can help you, you can help me, we can stand up for one another. So getting that peer support component in for them. Self-protection techniques. We go through physical self-protection whether we're working with the preschoolers or whether we're working with the teen population. It's on their level, it's what they're capable of doing. Realistically, a kindergartner can break an adult's foot by stomping on the arch of the foot. So that's, a skill that we teach in the classroom, how to get away from a stranger assault type situation. We also are very clear when not to use those things. And then most importantly, all through our curriculums, it's telling a trusted adult, helping kids recognize who they can go to for help. We never tell them who they can go to for help. We ask them who they think they could go to for help, because the people that we as adults identify with aren't necessarily the people that children identify with, who they feel comfortable talking to, who believe them, who are receptive to what they have to say. And so we work on those skills also.
In terms of awareness and sort of making people aware of your services, but also just the issue of child assault and prevention in Ashland County, is it a difficult job to get the word out, or do you find people are ready and willing to listen once you're there?
I've found that people are willing. Once we're there, it's kind of we make ourselves known and we educate, and I think people are real receptive, to that. Like I said, I'd like to have a greater presence, in the community and get more education out there to various groups.
What do you think?
I also believe that people are very receptive in that. I think that oftentimes people will hear about an adult meeting or an opportunity to increase their education concerning the problem, and I think we don't understand how often those people have, possibly been victimized themselves in the past, and they're reluctant or leery about going someplace because it brings up a lot of emotions. I know Tracy probably does the same thing I do. I never, once I finish a workshop, an adult workshop, just walk out and leave. You always stay because because of statistics, that you've got people in that audience that have been through situations. Some of them might not have ever had those things brought to the forefront and dealt with even. I can remember an elderly lady that was probably a kinship family member raising a preschooler. And I can remember the look on her face coming up to me afterwards and telling me about being sexually assaulted when she was a child. And I said, I hope your family rallied around you and supported you and you got the help you needed. And after a while working with her, she says, you don't understand. She says, I never told anybody about it until today. So to know that somebody is that old and has kept that secret that long, they're reluctant in that respect oftentimes to come out. So, but normally we get a pretty good turnout, especially with the younger population. But CAP itself has been in the county for 25 years. So we're doing like second generation CAP. So it's like the parents have already been through the workshops. So not as many of them do come to the adult trainings, which is a shame because they would learn those adult skills too. But they're comfortable with the program. So.
Well, it's good to hear that your message is receptive, given it isn't something that people easily talk about, or like you mentioned, are willing to sort of, come out on if they have been abused. So it's good to see that you're encountering, reception in terms of your message and getting it out there. When we come back, we'll have some final thoughts about child assault prevention in Ashland County. Stay with us.
What makes our journalism and digital media department unique from maybe some of the other colleges and universities in Ohio is that we offer the opportunity for students to get involved. We don't ask them to go off and take their general classes and come back in 2 years. We ask them to get involved from the very first day.
Catholic Charities Community Services of Ashland County is a United Way agency providing a variety of social services to all residents in need of assistance. These services include child assault prevention, teen mentoring, and mental health services to children, adults, and families. In addition, Catholic Charities sponsors the Golden Center in Loudonville. This is an older adult social and recreational program that is open to all seniors on Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 12 in the Loudonville Library. If you or a loved one are in need of any of these services, please contact your local Catholic Charities today.
Welcome back to Ashland Alive. I'm your host, Gretchen Dworznik. We've been talking for the past few minutes about child assault prevention here in Ashland County, and I do want to thank both my guests for coming on and talking about this topic and really sort of bringing awareness to something that's relatively difficult to get people to talk about. I wanted to give you an opportunity in this last segment just to sort of give us your final thoughts. So Tracy, go ahead.
I just want to say is if you do suspect child abuse, neglect, or any type of situation where a child is at risk for any of those things, to please call us. We do investigations. We do offer help and support as much as we can. That number to reach us during the day is 419-281-5001. That would be our report hotline. We also, just to mention, with Ashland County Department of Job and Family Services as an agency, a whole agency, we do have other services that also can help in the prevention of those. Our Family Stability Program offers, the SNAP or the food stamp program, Medicaid services so that people can get health care. We have daycare and child care programs through Job and Family Services, as well as programs that can assist like those emergency type situations. We do have the child support, we do have the employment and training so that people who are looking for work or need that additional kind of workforce training that is available through our department as well, in addition to children and family services.
Pam, any final thoughts from you?
If you care about children, do what you can to support them. If you do suspect, like Tracy said, if you don't feel comfortable with the situation, trust your gut feeling. I think that's even better than just saying if you suspect. Call Children's Services, Children Protective Services, come to an adult training. If you call Catholic Charities, we're more than happy to tell you when we do have adult trainings where to find them, or that we can, for a group, even pull one together to help increase that knowledge and that. So don't just not do anything and regret it later. Do something to protect the children.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us on the program today and letting people know the services that you have to offer here in the county, and also hopefully shedding some light on a topic that can be difficult to talk about. So thank you again. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Ashland Alive. We appreciate it. If you'd like to be a guest on our program, please contact the Department of Journalism and Digital Media at Ashland University. You can email us at jdm@ashland.edu, or you can give us a call at 419-289-5139. Have a great day.